We're recording now.
Okay. Okay. So I think it's better we have a recording because most of the time I find it very difficult to make private recordings because of the way times is shifting now. But most of these recordings can be very useful and helpful to other people too when they watch them. So let's just make sure it's recorded. Um, so what I was trying to say is that if you look at the markets right now, we are currently having a shift.
Yes, we're currently having a shift.
We had a crazy week. Okay, so basically we had a very, very crazy week. And if you look at the structure on Euro USD here, you can see the trend was shifting from one direction to the other. So we had like a bearish trend, then price shifted to like a bullish trend. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
most of the time, and this week was basically within this particular area. So we would say Monday did some kind of like manipulation around this zone because I remember that I posted an analysis of this particular area where I was expecting price to do something like you know, I was having a buy area around here, and then I got this stop hunt and that's because of this daily area of interest you have here. Because I see you also highlighted that area of interest. This
yes,
was a
yes.
big deal. Okay, and if you notice from what we then had, price did a manipulation that cleared out all these accumulated lows
Yes.
before officially creating this. If you know Wyckoff, this is if you know Wyckoff. You look at this like a spring,
Spring.
and then
Yeah,
this will
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
yes, and then this will be like the last point of
That's
supply
nice.
before
That's fine. Before
yes, and
the
then
expansion.
yes, and then this looks more like an SOS because as you can see, it was a week that invalidated this internal structure, regardless of this liquidity here, and then it just cleared out liquidity from these highs, and then went back down to clear the liquidity highlighted on this low. You
Yeah,
see?
yeah,
So you can say this is an SOS, not an official break of structure. We can say it's an SOS.
yes.
So the trend was basically understandable, which was how, not just why, how I was also able to get that last trade on Friday from this point. So I lost on Monday thinking this was where the bearish trend was going to start from. And then I got a comeback, understanding what was going on with the overall structure as being a reversal, which is an accumulation. Now, for somebody who is not basically aware of most of this information, it's difficult for you to navigate through these things. And it's normal. That's something you have to understand. It's normal. And when it becomes this difficult, you should also not look at it from a perspective that your method might be wrong, but instead look at it like the week is basically focused on triggering emotions because it's at a reversal zone. It will need to build liquidity. So this perfect creation of this bearish range here would give a lot of focus to looking for a continuation pattern to get, on the bearish trend of what's going on like this. So a lot of people will be looking to sell from this point and also looking to clear out this as an internal low.
Yeah.
Now, from your question of having difficulties in understanding what's going on and you being stuck, it's not because of the method. And secondly, you should ask yourself again, how often do you study the method you use? Like, how often do you take out time, not mainly to look at your own analysis, but let's say go to some of the recordings I post and then take some of the previous classes we have had to refresh your memory, mainly when you see market like this on a reversal zone. Like I normally tell people, I say, if you're going to study the market, it's better you study at a reversal point and not a continuation because the continuations are very easy to understand. That's like the flex period of the market, like looking at the structure of this area here. Now, knowing it's a bearish trend and you're just mitigating a daily zone, it's giving you that flex of it could be a reversal, right? It's
Yeah.
possible that this counter structure could be going bullish from here. So it's not that easier. And this is some of the reasons why we now shift to money management, where we go manage your risk. And this becomes a low risk because you're looking to buy. At the same time, you're looking to sell. You
Okay.
understand? You're looking to sell
Yeah.
because if the trend shifts and you're wrong, you should have an area of interest where you're entering on. And this was one of the reasons that got me pissed on Monday. That was why I didn't trade much within the week because I was angry at myself that I knew something like this could happen, but I did not really act on it. I was focused on the buy. And that was because I was interested in it because I already shared the bias to the public. So I was kind of like hoping that this Asian low was cleared and price stayed within this. And then when the bullish trend came in, I was happy because I kind of like shared the analysis. And then I was looking at the re-entry from here. This was where I now shared it to the group. That was the trade itself from my
The
MT4.
trade sell, okay.
So I'm not talking about this was the first analysis I made. That was looking at my chart. That's another thing you have to take into account because when you're making analysis is different from when you're trading.
Yes.
You have to, I've said this thing multiple times. You have
Yes,
to understand that
they're very
yes, what you're
different
seeing
actually.
on your phone, the candlesticks you're seeing on your phone are contrast information. Those like it's like summarized data because you can't see a broader screen like when you use your system. You understand? And it's a good thing to an extent, and it's also a bad thing to an extent because on the positive side is that you don't get to distract yourself with too much price action when you're focused on your entry and your exit and your stop loss and your take profit. But on the negative side is that when you're using it to analyze or when you take a loss, it's difficult to go back to the drawing board like your system to get a new
Oh,
structure of what's really going on because
what
you can
happened?
get glued to the phone. You see, you can get glued to your phone and you might want to take a revenge trade to equalize the loss, which then leads to you getting delusional because you forget that the information on your phone is a construct, it's a contract information from what you will get from the system. Do you understand?
Yes.
When I shared that trade on my phone, I was already on my MT4. That was when I shared this particular. I was already on my MT4, and I was hoping that price would just basically do its thing because I can see the change of character from here, the stop points from here, and this demand zone got this mitigation within London section of Monday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
And
yes.
then everything was perfect, and then I forgot again. London section is very manipulative, so you have to be aware. So my first observation zone was this area here, which is this one you also highlighted. And then the second was basically to clear out this high. That is if we were bullish.
Yeah.
That is something like this. Sorry, my phone was in front of me. That is looking at something like this. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so
And
but when this happened, that brought a very big difference to the picture because it was unexpected. As you can see, it did not really get into this supply zone here. We just had a test of the opening, like it just kissed
yes,
the,
it,
the,
it, it
the
didn't it
supply and
didn't
then it dropped.
actually test it. It didn't mitigate it well.
And if you see it on the forward time frame, it looks a lot like a manipulation. So I was very certain that it was a manipulation. And when I saw all the areas, the fair value gaps that was within it, I knew that, okay, this is clearly a manipulation and they're looking to clear out all this stuff. Because as you can see, this zone was created, this fair value gap was created, and then in a matter of few hours, yeah, it returned back because a lot of people will be looking to sell from here, because remember the overall trend was bearish. So it's good to use reversal areas and confluence on multiple time frames when you're trying to forward test your strategy because you get to observe things like this and then you get familiar with when things are happening. So when you see things like this SOS clearing out this area of interest, because when the SOS happened, it cleared out this guy, right?
Yes.
So this is where the complex of yes, I think is an SOS comes in because as you can see, before it cleared out that, it created this new range, which created this liquidity, this supply area, which would be a perfect Wyckoff schematic if you're looking from that perspective.
Yeah.
So in all, one of the reasons why these things could be complex to you is because maybe you have been away a little bit from studies, and you are focused more on trying to get an entry and an exit, like focused on your perspective, like your strategy. Because for me, like I told you earlier, I'm currently working on an ebook right now on harmonic patterns. That's to tell you that I'm currently on study while I'm trading. So I'm not that far from my books. I'm not that fast. Even as I speak to you, I have a book here where I'm kind of like breaking down harmonic patterns to put it in forms of words so people can understand. And that is to tell you that I'm very, very familiar with different confluence when I'm trying to get a particular entry. So these are things you ask yourself. Maybe January, February, March is enough for you to start forgetting some stuffs. I'm just going to highlight some things for you that I think could be one of the reasons why you might be getting lost. Okay, not like I'm saying these are the reasons or these are wrong or this is wrong. I'm just going to highlight those things to you. And then maybe after the class, you can now balance it with your own book and then see some of the things I'm trying to say. You understand? I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong because from what we can see from your chart here, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So from what we can see from your chat, you did kind of like got the zone now, right? You kind of like basically highlighted everything that happened within this week.
Yes,
And you
that's the
had
thing.
you understand? But at the
Yes.
same time, you can't really point out why or what happened that you couldn't get the trade.
Yes,
So
that's the main issue. And I've been having that for multiple times. And when I even now get the trade, it's not like an Excel. So I'm always like,
okay,
what's going on?
okay. Now you consulted me and then I'm here. And what I'm trying to do now is not really try to tell you what you're doing wrong. I'm just going to point out some things that I would consider not necessary if it was my own chart. And at the same time, see them as some reasons that could lead to what we are talking about here. So what you can do is just jot down something,
Okay.
like on like a Catholic church, going to confess your sins. And then okay, so I pointed out two things so far. I pointed the fact that maybe you might be too far from studies and you're glitching, which is a normal thing when a system has not really been serviced in a little while. So it's normal for you to glitch. You just have to just put a little oil, study some courses like what we are doing right now. And then maybe within this weekend, you also go to the YouTube channel and watch some videos, refresh your memories and then prepare again and see what happens next week. Do you understand? And then
Okay.
secondly, I pointed out that to me, I would consider your chart very messy to be trading with in the first place because there are too many informations on it. What I mean by too messy now, like this guy here, what's this thing still doing here? You understand? Like,
Okay. Okay. I
what's this
understand
one
now.
still doing here?
I understand. I understand. I
You
understand
understand?
now.
Because at the same time now, these are previous trades you took them, you won, okay. Well, if they're still on your chart, then it's feeding your ego, regardless of what you think. You're not going to be clear on your decisions to think that because you did it once doesn't mean you can do it again. You can only do it because you're following rules. Understand that? Because you do it once doesn't mean you can do it again. You are only doing it because you're following rules. If you keep these things here and then you keep thinking you can do it, you make mistakes. Do you understand me? They make you make mistakes. It's feeding your ego. And this is a game of emotions we're talking about. So you have to understand that the aspect of emotions cannot be neglected, no matter how little it is. Your decision can be affected by as little as going to the group chat and seeing somebody's analysis that is bad as that. Your own is looking very whack. And because of that, you're taking a decision and then you lose. So if something that little can mess your decisions up, this is big enough to make you delusional. Do you
Actually, though.
understand?
And I
Like
actually used
how
to
many
look
times?
back at it. I used to look at it
Yes,
that
like how many times have you seen me have these things like previous trades? Do you even see my risk to reward ratio on my analysis?
no. I've wanted to ask you. I've actually wanted to
If it's
ask you
not my
that.
phone, I don't have to put it on my charts because it's going to feed my ego. It's going to show me how good I am. And that brings a problem to logic. You understand? Because I'm not that good if I don't know what I'm doing.
And also, Jose, I also want to ask you something. You see this area here that I iconed, this particular zone here with my
Yeah.
risk to reward. Um, if you notice, the risk to reward is after New York session. I did not take it. I did not take the trade. Like once New York session is over and price did not tap me in, I just used to stay off the market automatically. And if my setup did not show, but this zone here now, price came back here around 5:36 when New York session was over. So I'd already deleted my order, my setup. Is that wrong or is that okay?
It's all based on you.
Because
It's
I'm
not based on the
trying.
market or based on what I say. It's not based because understand something, rules are not implemented because other countries have rules. They are decided by the current government on seat. It's not based on who is doing similar thing or if the world is being run by democracy. If you are comfortable enough to get your trades the way you're doing it, then fine. But if you're not, then change it. There are multiple things you can apply that can make this thing better. But at the same time, if you pay attention to this same point we're talking about here, it got mitigated by this manipulation we have here. She.
Yes.
And you can't tell the market, why didn't you mitigate here? Why are you taking this long before you get there? That's to tell you that some of these rules we set to ourselves are limitations. You understand? They are limitations because the sections are divided to New York, Asian, and London section doesn't mean you are obligated to trade only one section or you're obligated to not trade the three of them. Doesn't mean it's right either. But what you have to understand is that whatever you're comfortable with is what you should work with, not what anybody says. That's one thing you should understand. Because there are multiple things you can use to understand what you're doing. It's just a matter of, are you comfortable with it? Like, on the aspect of these things I was highlighting on your chart, it's not something you might be aware of. Like, it's not something you even think is affecting you. But psychologically, your brain won't be comfortable with it. And do you know that you were influenced to doing this? Because a lot of people in the community are actually doing it. There are so many, like, I think King Solomon does it a lot too. There's this other public figure, one of my guys that we once had a boot camp that teaches a lot too. I think he has a similar name to yours. He does it too a lot. And these things are effects that we might not even be aware of. Talk more of the ones that are coming up because of the rules we are trying to keep to. But at a very, 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 very serious scale, you have to understand that it's all based on you. If you're comfortable with having these things on your screen, what I say does not even count. Do you get? But for me, that's why you hardly see my own. For me to be able to keep consistency, because I understand it's a game of emotions. I take out as much emotions as possible. Like, for example, even if I'm trading this zone and I'm highlighting this zone, I always make sure that this one is longer than the one below, because this one is here first. If this one is going to be mitigated, then this one has to be validated. And until then, this is not important to me. This is what I'm focused on. So this is going to be highlighted as price clearing out this high because that's still a swing point. From this point to this point, it's a swing point. So I'm just going to highlight this. And I don't need this zone anymore because it's going to make me confused since I'm paying attention to this one above. And at the same time, we have this one here. But regardless, you need to understand that this is a structure. And on a daily time frame, it would still be this high that cleared out your daily area of interest, which makes all this a single range on a daily or 4-hour time frame. That's, let's say, on the higher time frame. That means this zone are all internal highs. And if you have just two internal highs, how many areas of interest do you see you having here? You have 1, 2, 3. And if price is going to clear out all internal highs, you're going to be invalidated on every level, which is what we are saying right now. Because you're paying too much focus on the lower time frame. That's all your chart is trying to say right now. I'm not saying it though. From what your chart is saying.
From what the chart is showing.
Exactly, because this was what cleared out the daily low. This is your major range. I'm not even using the higher time frame, but we are using what you have here now. And then this would be the low. And then this would be, let's say, if we're to measure supply and demand here, this would be equilibrium.
Yes.
This would be premium, and this would be discount. Now we understand that we buy within what? Discount, and we sell within premium. And you are having like two zones three zones already in discount. 2 is bullish, 1 is bearish, which means this one is already not a valid zone to be even here. It has to be liquidity to something above.
Something above,
And
yes.
clearly, we have this above, which makes this liquidity.
Yes.
And now that makes this significant as well. But this zone is not that far from this one. And we are seeing stacked up highs here, which is also liquidity. So what's the need of trying to even separate this zone entirely? That's why I see my zones are big. Since you know that you're going to be taking the trade on your phone, it's not really that necessary for you to highlight some certain things, when you don't need them. Like, I do use Asian section a lot, but until when I need to use it, I always keep it short here. I don't want to even see it because I don't need that little confluence at the wrong time, because it's a confluence. Sections are confluence that are used to understand where you are at the moment, especially in time of days. It's not useful when you're trading an entire week. It's only useful when you're about to execute a trade. So it's not even supposed to even be on your chart every single time, because it's going to give you some kind of bias based on the particular areas you're finding the sections being formed. It's going to give you some kind of like bias to thinking like maybe this zone will be the one price will mitigate, since you have an extra section. You understand? Like,
Yes,
it's
yes,
going to give some kind of like, this is liquidity because we have this Asian section here. Anything can be liquidity. But at the same time, anything can be a tool to get you delusional, since you're looking at the same thing repeating itself over and over. This is just blue, black, blue, black, blue, black, blue. So you have to be very cautious of the kind of information you see so you don't get delusional. Because at the same time, the most important area of interest, looking at just this range here, is not even highlighted, which would be this order block, because that's the extreme point.
yeah,
And
that's the
this
extreme
as an
point.
internal
Yes.
higher
Yes.
liquidity, which means if you are wrong and what we are talking about internal and external structure is right here,
Yeah.
this guy that you missed, which now brings your focus to this guy, thinking this is where you now get your entry, and the price decides to do something like another stop hunt before going down, there's every possibility that this one is also going to get cleared out. That is if we are still bearish and this is a reaccumulation, not an accumulation. Remember, at the beginning, we talked about a reversal. That is
Yes.
because it's an accumulation. But if it's not an accumulation, it's a reaccumulation, which means it's a continuation of the previous trend.
But this Zoom is about to end in less than a minute.
But let me just give you the confluence on your DM, so we can stop here. Since I have that ebook to run to, then maybe you watch the recording again and see maybe some of these things I'm trying to say, and study and see how you can make some changes yourself. Okay?
Yes, thanks very much. It's actually very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll talk later.
All right. I'm waiting for the conference.